Before this episode begins, I'd like to say that I will be heading to DinoCon UK on the 25th and 26th of July in Birmingham. So if you see me wandering around in my podcast t-shirt, come and say hello. I have bookmarks and pin badges to give away as well. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll see you there.
It was just this really steep section of mountain, and there was a kind of head wall section, and it was so banked up with snow and ice. And I remember I was, we had all the right kit, ice axes and crampons and everything. And I was clearing the way with the adze of my axe, removing the snow, digging a short space through the snow, so we could get through this, this deeper section. And that's when I triggered this avalanche, this really large avalanche.
Wow.
Which, it carried us both. We were swept down the face of the mountain.
Welcome back to The Pirates Don't Eat the Tourists. I'm your host, Roland Squire. In today's episode, I'm talking to Matthew Myerscough about his incredible book, In Search of Sea Dragons, a fossil hunter's odyssey. This season, I'm charting the history of prehistoric fiction, and I also want to weave in those non-fiction stories, like Matthew's book, as I think they are important if you want to understand the whole picture. I want to know what it feels like to have a rock in front of you and break it open and discover something that was alive 200 million years ago. And also, how does one find themselves as a fossil hunter? Or as the Victorians called them, fossilists. A word that I absolutely love. Matthew's story is incredible. And for the very first time on the show, you can actually watch my conversation with him on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. This story starts with a life-changing event. So get ready to hold on tight. Hi, Matthew. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Hi, Roland. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. I was wondering whether you could tell listeners a little bit about yourself and sort of what drew you to writing such a personal story alongside fossil hunting.
Yeah, a bit about myself. So my background isn't actually in paleontology or fossils. This is very much a hobby or a passion. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my background is structural engineering, civil engineering.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I've been doing, when did I join? Yeah, 2011, I joined the kind of small engineering firm I work for at the moment, small sort of design firm, and we have a specialism in bridges. Mm-hmm. So my day job is very is quite different anyway, shall we say. So Cardiff is home, or has been home for the last sort of 10 years until recently. The fossil hunting, I'm very passionate about finding fossils and mm-hmm. searching for ancient life. That's something that, I've had a love. I've loved doing that since I was a child, and then got back into it in later years, in my adult life. And there's various things I think that kind of happened that sort of led me back into this childhood passion. But it was something that for a number of years I've really wanted to do was to write this book. Mm-hmm. And I think I always felt that I needed this personal thread in the book. I guess I wanted it to be more than just about the fossils and the things mm-hmm. I was finding. And I felt that I read a really wonderful book. Have you read Mudlarking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fabulous book.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful book. And Lara is she's such an amazing person. Mm. And I read that book. I suppose I was inspired to do something about the fossils. And I was, I was looking for similar sorts of books about fossils. And I found, as you'll know, there's an amazing number of books out there, aren't there? Published about paleontology,
of course,
and fossils and geology and all these sorts of things. But what I really wanted to read about was the experience the actual experience of finding fossils, being on the beach. I suppose that's really where I kind of felt, this is what I'm going to do. I want to write about what it means to me. And in doing so, I think I felt I needed that personal story, that thread throughout the book. I hope it's worked. Some people have been very kind to say it has. So
no, it has. And I think you're right there. And I think what it does is it goes back to the tradition of fossilists, which is that fabulous word, Victorian word. Before kind of paleontology, there were people like Mary Anning. There's a Reverend Taggart who was on my beach at Bexhill here. And it's those people who go out and just discover things. And there's that knowledge before the science bit comes in. There's the actual physicality of going into the rock and touching something and connecting with nature, but also the past and a very long-standing tradition. And I think that comes across very strongly in your book, which was fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Roland. It's my experience and what it meant to me being there on the beach. And like you say, coming from a non-technical background in paleontology, I was learning about these things as I was finding them in some respects. And I suppose that has its own magic as well to it. I'd find something and wouldn't immediately know what it was, even if after it had been cleaned or prepared. And I think perhaps there's some magic or some joy in that as well. Having to go and work out, maybe it was Dean Lomax or someone. I'd be pinging emails off to various people and what's this? Can you help me with this? And I suppose that side of it is, I've been fortunate in some respects because I didn't really have that big bank of knowledge. I'm not saying I do now, but I'm certainly learning a bit as I'm collecting and finding things.
Yeah. I was wondering whether we could go to the start of the book and actually kind of So did you just want to explain kind of the start of the book and how then this journey unfolds, this incredible story?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I should start at the beginning. I mean, the first chapter, really, I guess a lot of people, if they didn't read, if they hadn't, read the back of the book or whatever, then they might be kind of, that opening scene, they might be taken off guard really a bit because it, what's this got to do with fossil hunting? And the opening chapter really basically it is an accident in the mountains. It was back in 2014. It was Valentine's weekend. Ali and I, we were very early. It was really early days in our relationship, and we were just, we were a new couple basically. Just started dating, and it was this romantic. In my idea, we'll go to North Wales and we'll have a romantic weekend away. And we stayed in this fantastic old pub, the Pennygorid Hotel. I don't know if you know it. It's a wonderful historic kind of mountaineering right in the heart of the mountains. It was a training base for the Everest ascent, successful Everest ascent in 1953, and various. There's all this kind of stuff there. It's a really amazing place to visit anyway. And so we were staying there, and in my younger years, used to do quite a bit of mountaineering, and that was something that came through from my father. His passion was climbing and mountaineering, and I'd done a lot with friends. A lot of winter climbing as well, ice axes and crampons and that sort of thing. So when Ali and I started dating, it was this natural progression that we were going to, she's a very outdoorsy person, and we were going to share the mountains together. And so we set off, the Saturday morning that weekend. We set off to climb Snowdon. We were on the footpath, the pig track, which is many people will know it or climbed it, and it's a very rocky track. It's rugged, steep in places. There's smooth slabs of rock and short, scrambly sections. But it is a footpath. But that day there was a lot of snow on the mountain, and looking back now with the knowledge, that I have, I've definitely, I was taking risks, and I can say that now looking back. But anyway, so we were on a section of the footpath where the track zigzags back and forth because it gets so steep.
So how high are you at this point?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. So we're pretty close to the top of the mountain. There's a section where it reaches a flatter kind of col or a flatter section between an adjacent peak and the summit of Snowdon. And so we were just approaching this point, and we were probably only, in good weather, maybe 20 minutes from the summit. You know, we were pretty close, but it was just this really steep section of mountain, and there was a kind of head wall section, and it was so banked up with snow and ice. And I remember I was, you know, we had all the right kit, you know, ice axes and crampons and everything, and I was clearing the way with the adze of my axe, you know, removing the snow, digging a short space through the snow, you know, and that's when I triggered this avalanche, this really large avalanche.
Wow.
Which, you know, it carried us both. It was about 1,000 feet. We were swept down the face of the mountain, and I was completely buried under the snow. Ali, remarkably, you know, it's a miracle, really. She stayed on the surface. She was carried almost the same distance as me, but not quite. She was a little bit higher up the slope. And yeah, it was, you know, it was. Yeah. I've spoken about it quite a bit, and I've obviously written about it. But it was a terrifying experience.
How does it feel to? How was it writing about that?
It was really, really cathartic, and it probably sounds like a cliche, but it just kind of came naturally to me to write that section. And I think it's been quite hard reading for my family. You know, my mum said she was upset reading it. It was a difficult read and for family and stuff. And I never set out, obviously, to upset anyone, but I just felt I needed to get, I needed to get that story down.
Yeah, no, it's a really arresting. I recommend anybody just picking up the book and just reading that first page, even first paragraph, and that will tell you a little bit about kind of not really the story to come, but the starting point of it.
Yes, I think that's it. I think that you've hit the nail on the head. Really, that accident was really kind of the starting point. It felt like the first thing, actually, in a series of things, really, that kind of eventually led me away from the mountaineering and the climbing that I was doing quite a bit of at that point in my life, and then back into the fossils to a fairly keen level, should we say, as a fossil hunter. But you know, so I was completely buried. But Ali and I both remember going off the edge of a small crag, and I've been back. We've been back there together. And I've looked on the maps, and I've worked out, you know, this, you see the contours on the OS, on the Ordnance Survey maps and things like that. And I've had a look at where I think that small crag was. But I remember that feeling of kind of, you know, the fairground, the stomach lurch feeling you get when you drop suddenly on a roller coaster or something. And we both had that feeling as we went off the edge of this crag, basically. But we were cushioned by all of the snow that was moving with us. Yeah, and then coming to arrest, I mean, this was a bit that I felt I really wanted to try and capture in words as well, but it was just a feeling of complete surprise, which was, and it shows how naive I was, because I never crossed my mind that day, you know, we were going to get caught in an avalanche. And it was just complete surprise when I was, you know, entombed in the snow, and I describe it as like being encased in a block of concrete. You know, I couldn't even move the tips of my fingers. You know, you think, oh, you could probably dig your way out if you started with your hands and gradually make a void or something like that. But
was that sort of thing going through your head while you were in there?
Yeah, when I came to a stop, which was so quick anyway. But when I was I stopped moving, basically. And I remember thinking, I really need to get out of here. This is not good. And I remember thinking, if I can start with my hands and try and dig away. But honestly, I couldn't even move the tips of my fingers or anything like that. So it did feel quite desperate. And then that's when I had that kind of emotion of surprise, and it was like, this is how it's going to pan out for me. And it was so unexpected. And then thankfully for me, I very quickly lost consciousness. Yeah. And Ali, I mean, absolutely amazing, stayed calm and, you know, raised the alarm. She was shouting for help. And then there was a wonderful guy called Frenchie who has a lot of experience in the mountains, and he was nearby. And there were some other people as well nearby that basically came to our rescue. he stayed calm as well as Ali. He was, and he sort of bounded down the slope and then managed to find. Yeah, I think it was the very top of my rucksack and started digging, and then I was still attached, and so yeah, that's the first chapter of the book, really.
Yeah,
starting with that.
And what I get from it is, so that's your starting point, an incredible story, incredible rescue.
Yes.
And then the rest of the book almost feels like the recovery from that. Because you talk about this obsession with looking at avalanches, historical ones, reaching out to other mountaineers, and just this cycle of going through this again and again.
Yeah.
And what was it that then triggered that kind of shift to fossil hunting and kind of rediscovering that thing that you had as a boy?
I talk about in the book kind of a period of difficult years after the avalanche. And I think I was chatting to my dad about this the other day, and I felt I probably could have had a whole book's worth of stuff almost in between the avalanche and some of the other stuff that came later. But, really, I think there was a series of other things as well that also happened. But I was doing things that, I think looking back, I probably, had some level of, PTSD. And if I was, to have an accident like this now, I would almost certainly go about dealing with it in a different way afterwards. But at the time, I didn't really know, what to do or to seek professional help or that sort of thing. And so I was kind of throwing myself into various different things at, quite a keen level. And one of the things was actually my engineering work. And we did various projects. But I remember getting very into project work and bridges and some of the projects we were doing to probably an unhealthy level. I was doing stuff in the evenings, or I was doing stuff out of normal working hours when perhaps I didn't need to be doing. So I was doing things like that.
So and then like the work-life balance of everything just completely went out the window.
Exactly, yeah. And looking back, I think I was probably just trying to, I don't know if I was trying to occupy my mind or prove that I was good at something, or this was some sort of, I don't know, trying to validate, what I was doing. So I definitely did a lot of that. And then I did some other mountain stuff as well. And then we also had, and I don't talk about there were a couple of trips that we had planned to go to the Himalaya as well. And neither of them materialized as well. The first one, it was me and two other friends, and it was going to be a kind of exploratory trip to the Indian Himalaya.
Wow.
And we had a lot of it booked. And to this day, I'm still really good friends with Mike and James, and we meet up all the time and everything like that. But I do feel I let them down a bit because I kind of pulled out of that. I'd lost confidence. And then there was another trip then I think it was the following year that we had lined up, this time with a professional guide. And that was actually cancelled because the guide we were going to go with, or one of the guides in the group, was actually killed in an avalanche in the Himalaya. So there was kind of this weird, I guess this feeling of these things were happening in the mountain, in this mountain kind of stuff that just started to really make me rethink all of it. There were some great successes as well. And I did a really long traverse of the Welsh peaks, the Welsh 2,000-foot mountains to raise money for mountain rescue.
Yeah.
And that was, I have got some fond memories of that trip, and I look back with pride on that.
What I like, so how the book is broken down is to actually then you going to the various different sites, and it's almost like this step-by-step little snapshot of you finding larger or more, you kind of paint the picture of the place that you're in.
Yes.
But each chapter is its own self-contained thing.
Story,
yes. And that feels very meditative in the way that it's written after the explosion of the start. And then it's that rebuild that happens through the rest of the book, which I think is just fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think, and to add to that as well, I wanted to start, hopefully with with the fossil stuff anyway, with the small things. I wasn't, and I'm not saying I'm an expert now, because I'm not, but the quality of the fossils I've been finding has definitely kind of increased as I've gained experience, as you would expect. But I wanted to have the full sort of picture or journey with the fossil stuff, starting off with, I know we had the scapula, the sort of scapula Atlantic major, which was a great find. But then after that, there was a long, long time of just small bits and pieces of fragments of fossils. There was a long time of that, really. So I kind of wanted to include all of that stuff as well.
Did it feel, because you were starting from essentially scratch again?
Yes.
And you can't have any control of what you go out to do. So I suppose in mountaineering, tell me if I'm completely wrong in this, but there is a conquering element to it where you sort of feel like you can, not having not done it at all, but I've done like long walks and like ways and stuff like that. And you feel like so this is the part of that walk and I'll get to that bit and then I'll have done the whole way. Yes. And you get to that completion point. Yes. And whereas for fossil hunting, it comes across in your book as if you can go out with all these grand ideas of what you might find on the beach, but it's up to nature actually whether it reveals any of its secrets to you.
Yes. Yeah, I think absolutely. Like just, you plan your mountain walk or your long walk or whatever, and you, generally speaking, unless you're unlucky, you go out and you do it, don't you? And you have that satisfaction of reaching the summit or completing your walk or your bike ride or whatever it is. But like you say, with the fossil collecting, it's so uncertain, isn't it? There's so much chance and luck involved, I think. And I love that element of it.
It comes across in your book that's part of it. That's part of the enjoyment is actually not finding something sometimes.
Yes, yeah. Especially now, I think in my early days, I was very focused on making the finds and things like that. But now I'm definitely much more relaxed. Coming home empty-handed and much more accepting of well, that's just what that day is going to be, and maybe that's a healthy place to be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Part of this series of what I'm looking at the moment is the ichthyosaur, plesiosaur. I don't know whether you've read Journey to the Centre of the Earth.
A long time ago, yeah. Yes, not for many years.
But part of that is that big battle between those two animals.
Yeah.
And I wondered, there's an amazing bit in your book where you talk about actually setting the scene of the world at which the ichthyosaur and the plesiosaur live in. And I wonder whether you could just take us through the world of is it the Jurassic seas?
Yeah, I really tried to read up about this, and it's something that I want to learn more about as well. But I wanted to try and paint this picture of, if we rewound the clock, I don't know, 200 million years ago, or, what did these beaches look like? What was this landscape, in South Wales? And I think South Wales, that area where, I've been collecting on the beaches of Somerset and South Wales quite a lot, also, North Yorkshire. But if we think about South Wales, I think we had, at times anyway, in the early Jurassic, shall we say, there were obviously the Jurassic, there's millions and millions of years, and there were huge changes throughout that time, as people have pointed out to me. But I was focusing on, this warm, fairly shallow continental sea, that was teeming with all these kind of strange, unusual life forms. We've got the ammonites with their, beautiful coiled shells, and then we've got the squid-like belemnites, and then of course ichthyosaurs, the plesiosaurs, and we've got a variety of different shapes and sizes with both, haven't we? The ichthyosaurs, I think recent research by Dean and other people have shown they can reach sizes up to 60 feet, perhaps.
Wow.
Really, really quite massive animals. The things I've been finding have been quite modest in size. And the plesiosaurs as well, quite different body shapes with, especially in terms of neck length and skull size and things like that. And that specimen I found at Lavernock Point, that was quite an interesting animal because it had quite a long neck, but it also had quite a big skull. And then you had the kind of prehistoric sharks. And then I guess on the seafloor, you had all these unusual, things like the devil's toenails, the gryphea, because we find those. Well, we can find those in abundance, can't we?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a fossil collection or you've got some.
No,
there.
so I have been. So I grew up in Devon.
Yes.
And used to go to Lyme Regis a lot.
Okay.
So going along the Ammonite walkway, the pavement there.
Yeah,
and never finding anything, but always buying something from the shop. So so I'm a gentleman in the proper fashion, a gentleman fossil collector.
Yes. I love it. That's awesome. You've built up a collection. Doesn't really matter how. So, but yeah, so things like various, I suppose, bivalves and gastropods and these things. But for me, the love was really the marine reptiles. It was the fascination. I don't quite know why the ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs and above the ammonite. I know some collectors out there are particularly interested in ammonites, aren't they? Some fossil collectors will focus on ammonites or even other things. But for me, the fascination has always been with these marine reptiles. It's something to do with, I don't know, kind of a childhood fascination that maybe many of us have of monsters, dinosaurs, otherworldly things with sharp teeth, big eyes, long necks, lurking in the depths. I don't know. It's this.
It is. I think everybody listening to this will have that as well.
Yeah.
And it's the tangibility of when you touch something that is not around anymore.
Yes.
And yet,
absolutely, yeah.
And yet, undoubtedly was.
Yes,
and it was in a world where this thing could exist.
Yes.
And that is not the world that you're currently standing on the beach.
Yes.
Amongst, and it's the moment, and I think it speaks to what is all through this season, to kind of looking at the fiction side of it, and it's trying to make sense of it, a very human need to understand our place in the world and in time.
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it, to be, to stud somewhere and find something, and then to think, back 180 million years, how different this place, how different the world was, and that it's that overlap though of the same. It's kind of like the same physical place, but it's separated by this huge gulf of time.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. I can never appreciate just how vast, a number, 180 million. I always struggle, I think, to kind of comprehend just how long that is, really.
Yeah. And I think some people will be like, oh, well, I can't think about that length of time, and so therefore it doesn't mean much to them, or kind of they move out of that sort of, I suppose, childlike fascination with it. But actually, loads of people stay within that because they're just trying to make sense of that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just love it. And I, find myself just kind of getting lost as I'm on the beach, trying to think back to that world, that time. It's a wonderful thing to try and imagine. And it's a great way, going back to the avalanche and the other mountain stuff, it's a great way of kind of losing yourself from from any whatever's on your mind, whether it's work or other things. It's a great way, I find anyway, of forgetting about, should we say, modern day worries for a short period of time anyway. Yeah. It certainly works for me.
And I also love in the book, so with fossil hunting, there is sort of two bits of time travel. You have the first where you go back, to the time of when that animal was, and then you have the second bit where you actually think of people like Mary Anning.
Yeah.
And that bit of time travel.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about her in the book. Was she on your mind while you were excavating these two marine reptiles?
To some extent, yeah, a little bit. I mean, there are obviously others out there as well that pioneered, but she was just such a remarkable person, wasn't she? And I think I do often wonder, what was going through her mind as she found these things when, we just knew we just had, we didn't really know that much back then at all, did we?
No.
And to think when she was unearthing these skeletons, it must have, the magic we feel now when we find these things. Can you imagine what it was like for her? And the beaches then must have been chock full of stuff that just.
And it was and it's the thing of, lots of people just coming across things, but it takes somebody like Mary Anning to go to extreme lengths, actually, to dig those things out of the rock and to have that sort of obsession and know that this thing is special. Yes. And that's quite something. And she wasn't from money. She wasn't from anything like that at all. She was somebody trying to make her way in the world, struck with a lot of tragedy in her family. Yes. And yet this innate ability, seemingly, to just find fossils, and incredible fossils at that.
Yeah, amazing things she found. Yeah, what a remarkable lady. And as she's still inspiring so many people right through to this day, and will, undoubtedly will carry on doing so as well. But also, we're only, I suppose, a part way on this journey, aren't we? And what will we know in 100 years' time and 200 years from now as well? I
know. How does that feel when you've some of your find has been in the Cardiff National Museum?
The big jaw from Lavernock, the plesiosaur. It's actually with it's basically it's either there or on its way there. So it's been donated to the museum in Cardiff. So it's. It's in safe hands, and it will be there very soon if it's not already there.
So how does that feel having that? So you are part of this long story of finding finding creatures like that.
It's a wonderful thing, to be able to make a contribution like that. I think it's a privilege to to be able to do that. And I'm definitely of the opinion that if there's anything I find that is of benefit to science, then I'm keen to share it. Basically, it can get a bit complicated, I suppose, with some of the kind of, depending on where you are in the country, with rules and regulations about some things.
Yeah, you talk about that quite. There's certain instances when you take a photo of something on the Facebook group, and then it's sort of, we need the proper protocols. You need to delete the post from there. Yes, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was me being a bit gung ho really, and finding something special, and it was in situ, and I very quickly I put it up on the South Wales Facebook group, the fossil collecting group there, and I was quickly told to basically delete that post, which I did. I've learnt my lesson there.
See, Mary Anning didn't have to deal with Facebook.
She had no worries about social media blunders.
That was like the lowest down on her worries that she needed, but at least she didn't have to deal with it.
But that one was a wonderful discovery and a wonderful team effort to recover that. But that was, partly I was advised to delete it so that, others didn't kind of collect it. I don't, maybe they wouldn't have done, but just to try and protect the fossil, because it was in situ and we didn't want somebody else perhaps damaging it before it could be collected. But also because it was in situ, it was part of the beach. We needed to collect it legally and get the right permissions, from the landowner. We needed permission from Natural Resources Wales as well. And we worked, with the museum, with Cindy and the team at the museum to do everything and get everything done properly. So that was a really successful project. And I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted that I believe there's, a research paper being done on that fossil, and
incredible.
And it will be in the museum. So I'm definitely of the opinion that if there's anything I find, that's of any value to science, then I'm keen for it to be studied and shared, and if it needs to go to a museum, then that's what I'll do. It's tricky. I don't know if you've seen the news about the T-Rex.
I did see that today. Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Yeah.
So I don't know how much has it actually been sold yet?
Yeah, I saw just maybe an hour ago or something. I think it's $50 million.
$50 million.
So, set a new record, because I think it's more than the Stegosaurus. I can't remember what that was.
Yeah. But, it's an interesting. So for anybody listening, there was a T-Rex that was put up for sale in New York today. It was expected to make something like 22 million was sort of the base line, but they thought it would go over that. So 50 million is what it's taken. Blimey.
It's wild, isn't it?
It is wild. And do we know who actually has bought it?
No, I didn't see. I don't think they've revealed the buyer yet. But I guess it will come out. I don't know.
Yeah, it might do. You never know. I know Nicolas Cage and Leonardo DiCaprio have got a few, so maybe they're adding to their collection.
Yes. Yeah. It's a really interesting area. I mean, I guess I can see all. I think I can appreciate all sides of it. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I've got a interview coming up with Lucas Rappel, and he's written quite a lot about kind of capitalism and how paleontology and money sort of has worked in the past, and who gets to own certain things regardless of where they're found. So
that'll be super interesting.
Will be interesting. Yes, it taught me a lot, I can tell you.
Yes, yeah.
So what was the best day fossil hunting for you? Kind of take us through what the day looked like and the end result of it.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's some stuff that I would love to share with you in the future. So I will put that to one side for now, shall we say.
Fine.
And To tell you about...
Intrigued, but later.
Probably I've had some really great days. Maybe, trying to think now, maybe I've got this beautiful plesiosaur flipper, which is fairly well articulated. It's got all the bones, most of the bones there in the paddle, in the flipper, in the correct place. There's a few that have been displaced, but it was a really epic find because I think it consolidated quite a lot of my skill. I felt that I'd consolidated quite a lot of my skills in collecting this fossil, and I think it was a fairly rough day. It was definitely January, pretty manky winter's day, and made the effort to crawl out of bed and get on my kit and get out on the beach when the weather's pretty poor. And then there were just a few it was a really big boulder. This is Lilstock in Somerset, so there's no one around. It's quite a long walk in, the way I went that day anyway. It was a fairly long walk in with a heavy bag, and there were just a few bits of bone visible. It's a really big boulder, a few bits of bone visible on one face. And I think maybe most sane people perhaps wouldn't tackle something of that size. I don't know. Maybe maybe that's just my character, but it's a few bits of bone on this one face. And what I always do now is I always check all the other sides of, if I see a bit of fossilized bone, I'll always check the other sides or faces of a rock or a boulder. And so I went round the other sides of this block. There's nothing on the two sides, but then on the opposite face, and it was honestly just maybe an inch above the shingle, the line of the shingle in the beach, there were three small rectangular bones, all in a row, beautiful, neat row. And that was really exciting because, I had this really big boulder and had bones on one face, and then I had bones on the opposite face as well. And the bones on the opposite face, these three small rectangles, they looked articulated. It was a really, really exciting moment because I knew then that there was such potential for this boulder, basically. But the tide was coming in. I didn't have my big hammer with me either, so it was one of those where it's like, I've got to leave it, take a load of photos. I'm talking about sort of looking up towards the cliff, trying to get.
Okay, so you sort of can triangulate your position when
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Because as you can imagine, on some of these beaches, if you even in a big boulder that may not turn over with a few tides, it's still quite hard to relocate sometimes. So try and take loads and loads of photos to mark the location. It's always a game of when can I next get back? And it's, trying to book annual leave at very short notice without annoying my bosses. Can I rearrange some work meetings or
Yeah.
clear a day so I can, and then the tides and to some extent the weather, although I'll do it whatever the weather, to be honest. But I think it was the following week. It was something like it was a Saturday when I found it. And I think it was like the following Thursday. I can't remember exactly, but it was the next week, I'm sure.
Right,
I managed to get the day. Probably made some excuse from work. I can't remember. Booked a day's annual leave and got back down there with my big hammer. Talking about consolidating skills. The first was, I've kind of learned now a bit, what may be promising. And, if you've got multiple bones, obviously visible on faces, then it's a really good sign. But the other thing I was going to say is my friends, Mike and Steve, who are long time fossil hunters, very, very experienced, real experts. They taught me how to split down these big rocks, basically. And there's a bit of a knack to it. And I'm not saying I've got it or anywhere near as good as they are, but I'm definitely getting better at it. And it's sort of using the corner of a hammer to work on the kind of brittle nature of the rock to really kind of, to split it down. And I started attacking this boulder, shall we say, and splitting it down. And eventually it split right through the paddle. But then I could see all of the bones on the cross section. And that was a really, really exciting moment, because then I had some idea, but you just never know, do you?
It's like Christmas.
Inside. It is. It's honestly, it's more exciting than Christmas for me. It's just like a real wow moment. And then this paddle came off in about, maybe it was 15 or 20 pieces, kind of, I'm there on the beach, finishing breaking it down. And then each individual piece will be wrapped in bubble wrap and things like that. Well, or the smaller pieces will be bagged and labelled and use marker pens. And so it's quite methodical. It's not just kind of, I'm not just kind of butchering these blocks on the beach. So I'm quite methodical about it. Yeah. Split it down into pieces and then carefully carry it all back off the beach, lay it all out in the boot of the car. And then there's a long process of, I do the kind of jigsaw work, gluing it all back together, and then sometimes use the angle grinder to reduce the rock, the overburden either side of the bones. And then I take it to my friend, Mike, who does the kind of the really skilled, the really detailed preparation work. And he's amazing at that.
Incredible. And the pictures I love in your book,
Thank you. Yes.
They really do show, especially the cleanup operation of when you find something and then what you're presented with next.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And that's something, I've learned through, a lot of help from friends, Mike and Steve, I've mentioned, with John, and loads and loads of other people. So learning off the fossil collecting community, it's definitely something that I've not kind of come up with myself. People have helped me and taught me a lot about how to do these things.
What I also love about the book is the fact that it's a very solo story, and it seems to be for all fossil hunters.
Yes.
But there is a rich community that is surrounding it.
Yeah.
So did you just want to talk a little bit about the community aspect?
It's amazing. I mean, I've met the most wonderful people, whether it's on the beach or online, through the fossil collecting community. I found everyone to be so kind of friendly and welcoming. And just recently, actually, at the Lyme Regis Fossil Festival, just, met the most amazing people who are so kind of generous with their time and with their knowledge as well. And just, I had various questions I wanted to badger people with, and everyone was just always really happy to kind of have a chat, whether it was over a beer or coffee or whatever, and just explain things or teach me things. So I think, I hope one day I can, I don't know, give back a little bit to anyone who's sort of just starting out and getting into fossil collecting, because I've had so much help and support. And I think, I really feel that the community is very friendly and welcoming.
For example, somebody wants to get into fossil hunting.
Yeah.
How would you suggest? Is there any top tips that you would be able to give them?
Yeah, definitely. Top tips. I mean, I would say, so I started, as you know, in South Wales. I didn't really have any, I couldn't find any guided walks in South Wales, but I definitely recommend, if you're just starting out in fossil hunting or you're new to fossil hunting, getting booked on a guided walk, there are some really great options in, the Jurassic coast where you used to go, obviously, Lyme Regis, Charmouth, all down there on that section of coast. Also in North Yorkshire, so the Whitby coastline, there's some great options there as well for guided fossil hunting walk. You can go with experienced collectors, with professionals, and also the Isle of Wight. And I'm sure there are other places as well around the UK. So if you get the chance to book onto a guided fossil hunting walk, I think that's a really good place to start, because you'll obviously learn what to look out for on the beach. Sometimes those subtle clues or signs, which otherwise might take quite a long time to learn. So you can definitely jumpstart your fossil collecting that way. But I think also really importantly, you'll learn about the health and safety stuff. Obviously always go on a falling, if you're collecting in the coast, always go on a falling tide, stay away from the cliffs. That was something that I put right at the front of my book. And I felt if I was writing about fossil collecting, I felt I had a responsibility to try and promote.
Before anybody just picks up the hammer and starts running about the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually, when I was doing the talk in Cardiff the other day, someone joked that I had the page on health and safety immediately before the avalanche chapter, which I thought was very funny. So, but anyway, that's something as well that you'll learn on these kind of guided walks or adventures with someone who has experience. And then also you'll learn about kind of sustainable fossil collecting and fossil collecting codes of conduct and, collecting loose things and leaving things in situ and that sort of thing. So it might sound obvious, but I would recommend, getting onto a guided fossil hunting walk. And then the other things, for me, I just probably to an obsessive level spent a lot of time looking at photos of fossils as found, and I trawled the internet, looking at, and all places now, Instagram, Facebook, the Facebook groups, the regional Facebook fossil hunting groups are really good. But I loved seeing pictures of what other people have found, but what it looked like on the beach, so what it looked like when they'd found it. And especially for the marine reptiles, I think some of that stuff is amazing, because some of the stuff, for example, my friend John was finding, you couldn't really see anything. It was just like, it might have been a block of shale and you could just see some bumps and bulges and you'd think there's nothing visible there. And he's got an amazing eye for finding these things. And so I learned a lot from looking at photos of what other people had found. And I found that really fascinating and exciting as well. So I spent a lot of time actually doing that. And then I always say you can't beat time on the beach. Just if you want to find really kind of exceptional fossils, then I think you've probably got to put the hours in to some extent. And,
right. Yeah.
Spend time on the beach. But it's not all about the big finds, is it? The ichthyosaur skulls or the plesiosaur paddles or whatever it is, the big ammonites. I guess just being out in nature, being on the beach, having some time. I don't know whether it's with family or by yourself or friends or whatever. Then I think it's always just, I don't know. I think it's time well spent, whether you find a fossil or not. So I'm hoping that trying to come round to that a bit more now, rather than the kind of ambition for the big fossils and that sort of thing. If that makes some sort of sense.
Yeah, no, it does, and it does feel so. The start of this series, I went down to my beach here in Bexhill, and we've got the footprints all across.
Yeah, amazing.
And it is amazing just standing on something like that. And that was relatively easy, just looking at the tide, seeing when it's down, and then just seeing if I could find them.
Did you find them quite easily, or was it a bit of hunting to do? Or,
a little bit of hunting.
Yeah.
But suddenly when you see it, you're like, oh my God, why I just walked past it. And you're just like, this is so incredible.
Yeah.
And I just think it's, I think if you're into anything like looking at the stars or something like that, it's about connecting you to yourself and grounding yourself on this planet and being part of a bigger story, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we were talking about time earlier, weren't we? In millions of years. And I don't know, it kind of yeah, it in a kind of an uplifting way, it kind of can give a sense of I don't know, purpose in a way. It's like, we're only here for this, relatively short period of time. Let's make it count and, have fun and do some good stuff and try some things, I suppose. I don't know.
Amazing.
I sometimes get that from it a little bit as well.
Well, that's good.
Give something a shot, and maybe the book, who would have ever said I was going to write a book? Well, I'll give it a go and see what happens. And here I am doing my very first podcast, which
amazing.
I feel very honoured to be.
That's been great.
So thank you very much.
It's been really fun. I think I was actually sat on the beach reading this the other day, and I was just looking at a rock, and I was thinking, there could be something in there.
Yes.
And I felt like,
did you take it home?
No. Yeah. I thought, if Matthew was here, he'd probably be like, right, that's got something in there. That's got something in it. And I'm just like, there's too many rocks. Which one do I go for?
Yeah. Too much choice.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So is there anything that you're working on at the moment? Are you working on a follow-up, for example?
Not writing as such, but what I can't seem to stop doing is making notes. So I have a notes app on my phone that I just have lots of ideas or thoughts. Sometimes it might probably sound daft. Sometimes and actually this is what happened with Sea Dragons, is sometimes it'd be a sentence, or sometimes it would be an idea for a paragraph or a chapter or thought or something. So I don't really know these ideas or thoughts. Half of them or more probably a load of rubbish, but I write them all down anyway. So I put all this stuff into my notes app, and it's getting quite long, shall we say. So I would love to do something else, and I've got lots of ideas, which I'm very excited about. But I also need a break. I also need a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
I'm doing my engineering work, and and also doing absolutely everything I can for this book and this project, I suppose, and future events and things.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, I'd absolutely love to do something else, and I have got lots of ideas, but we'll just have to wait and see. And I guess also nothing is guaranteed, is it? And I feel like I was really, really lucky to get this deal, and Severn, the publisher, have been amazing. But I guess who knows what the future holds. So I suppose just trying to enjoy this experience at the moment, and this one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. I think it's just so personal, and I think anybody, I think even if you don't have an interest in fossil hunting yourself, I think your story comes across so clearly that actually, I'd recommend this to anybody. And the sort of burnout attitudes, that lots of people have, no matter what their passion is, to find something that gets them out their own head for a moment and back out into nature and just connecting a little bit with, the world around us, I think is a tonic we all need. So, I think it very much does that as well.
I'm so pleased you took that from it, because that's what I really wanted to try and put across. So that idea of mindfulness and almost kind of like this almost like meditative state that I get into, and I'm just looking at the rocks, and got the wind and the noise of the sea and all of that kind of stuff. It's
amazing. So how can people find you online if indeed you want them to?
Yes, So I've recently joined Instagram, so I'm doing my best, but as we were saying earlier, it's a big learning curve for me, is the social media. I think I've always been very quiet, even on Facebook. I've never done a lot, but I am trying now to do stuff on Instagram. So my Instagram is Severn Sea Fossils. So Severn as being, the Severn estuary. So I wanted something that kind of covered collecting in South Wales and the Somerset coast. I mean, what that doesn't include really is North Yorkshire, which or even Jurassic Coast in Dorset. Anyway, Severn Sea Fossils is Instagram.
Good. It's good. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. And so that's where I am. Yeah.
And I'll put all the links to where to buy this book from their own website. What's the publisher called again?
Severn Books.
Severn Books. So I'll put the link to them to support them as well. And Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me. It's been really fun, and I hope it inspires lots of people to check all the health and safety first, obviously, yes. and the codes, and then book themselves on a fossiling tour.
Yes, and check your avalanche forecast if you're going out in the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roland, I just want to say thanks so much for having me, but also for your support as well, because I feel like on Instagram you've been a massive supporter of my work.
It's fine.
So I'm really grateful.
When I saw the book come in, do you know Robert Macfarlane?
Yes, yeah. What an amazing writer.
And it's and the Mudlarking book. It's the personal aspect.
Yeah.
I think that's what people who write. Here's my critique of, but they don't put enough of themselves in books.
Yes, okay.
And to not understand that that's actually why people want to read them.
Yeah.
And I think you come across very clearly and as a very passionate person for fossil hunting in here, but also just yourself outside of that. You can quite clearly see who you are through this book, which is great.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so pleased, but but like I said, I'm so grateful for your support, because I feel like you've been a really big supporter on Instagram and everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Wow. What a story. Thank you so much to Matthew for his time, his openness, and sharing that story with us. And you can read more about it in his book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's got a passing interest in fossil hunting, but also somebody that loves personal stories. I mentioned it several times during that conversation, but I think it is so important to say that this book is not just for people who are interested in fossil hunting. You will be interested in Matthew by reading this book. He puts all of himself in here, but truly a really great read, and I'll post the links to how to buy it from Severn Books directly in the show notes for this episode. You can also find Matthew on Instagram at severn.c.fossils. Severn is spelt Severn, as in the Severn Estuary. Now, next time, I'm taking a journey to South America with Richard Fallon and a very, very excitable Professor Challenger.
Challenger somehow manages to be the romantic kind of hero who is using science to forge brave new worlds, but also the pencil-pushing kind of dweeb that Conan Doyle obviously found rather disenchanting. He plays with both these things, and this obviously works because it's held together with just this idea. It's basically just a super intolerant man, both for good and bad.
Join me and Richard on Wednesday, the 5th of August, as we discuss Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. I feel like I'm peaking far too soon. Remember to follow this podcast on Instagram at Jurassic Pirates Pod. You can also subscribe to this podcast and get my bonus monthly episodes of Hey Roland, where I just get to talk completely unscripted about the world of Jurassic and dinosaur media. But for now, I'll just say, please check your tide times, get your hammer ready, and remember to always follow the collecting code.